Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland Reviewer. And welcome to the Wasteland, my weekly show where I take a deep dive into a particular film. And we're wrapping up Spielberg's early TV movie days with this film Savage. And Mike from SiftPop here is joining me. This is second time on my channel. First time a welcome to the Wasteland. But Mike, thank you for coming on.
Appreciate you having me on, Shane. Thanks.
Absolutely. And before we get into our three segments, I always like to give my guests a chance to shamelessly plug anything they'd like to shamelessly plug. So, Mike, is there anything you would like to tell the lovely people listening or watching about that you've been involved with?
I've been reviewing a lot of TV shows on SiftPop recently. I had an article come out recently on Outer Range on Amazon Prime. A little much for me, but it was still good. Recently had also some reviews from Apple TV Plus's Pachinko and HBO Max's Tokyo Vice. Those recently came out, and then I had a review for Scribe Magazine come out recently on the state of Marvel TV and for Moon Knight as well. So check those out. Yeah.
I did see that one pop up on there. I'm like, oh, Mike's on here too.
Mhm.
Because I also write for Scribe Magazine.
That's honestly how I got involved. So I saw that you were writing and I reached out. So
There you go. You got to build the brand. All I'm going to say about Outer Range is, my God, that one scene with Josh Brolin at the dinner table with just saying grace. I'm like, holy crap.
this guy's got some stuff, doesn't
Yep.
he? So yeah.
Josh Brolin's intimidating. When he's angry with that voice, I'm just like, oh my God, it's Thanos.
No, Thanos, no, don't snap. Oh wait, no, you're just an angry rancher right
Yeah,
now.
you're just an angry rancher who's not as tall as you probably would expect the person with that voice to have.
No, no.
Which is why it's so funny looking behind the scenes on like Infinity War and Endgame, because like Chris Hemsworth's there, and then it's just like Josh Brolin,
Mhm.
the giant Thanos head on top of him.
I
But
know.
anyway, so for those who haven't tuned into the show, before we have three segments, we have our coming attractions, which we'll be talking about Friday the 13th, which makes a lot of sense why Peacock's releasing one thing that's releasing this weekend. And then we have our feature, which is Savage, the made for TV film from Steven Spielberg, and some recommendations. So, Mike, what film this weekend are you most looking forward to?
I'm gonna go with the Peacock slash film release of Firestarter. That's one that I'm looking forward to because one, if you're on Peacock or if you're subscribed to Peacock, you cannot miss that they are plugging away at this like no other. They want people to go see this, and it's understandable. Plus, also, when I was a child, I saw the original one, and it terrified me. So I'm curious to see what this does differently, and if it holds up to the original. So I'm looking forward to Firestarter. I have my expectations will be just fine to some extent or another. I'm just looking forward to it, and we'll see what happens.
I I there's one other film that like a month ago wasn't even showing up on the release schedule, which was odd. That I wound up picking, but this one definitely was up there because I found it interesting that one, we're in a timeline where Zac Efron's a dad. Like, oh no. And it has an interesting premise, and I'm a fan of Stephen King. I'm reading different seasons right now. About to record a review on Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption. But one thing that really piqued my interest about this was when I heard that John Carpenter was doing the score to this, and I'm like,
Oh,
and not gonna lie, I watched this last night because I got a screener for it, and which said a lot that they literally sent the screener at 9 p.m. last night, and I'm like, hmm. And which I'm about to record my review for it too. But all I'm gonna say is, my God, that score is amazing. I was like, it was everything I wanted to be. I'm just like, yes, John Carpenter. If you don't come back and make movies anymore, you can compose any movie. Just do it.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Great.
it definitely made every scene better. I'm just like, honestly, I sat through the credits because I wanted to just listen to the score as it kept going. So I'm like, yep,
awesome.
This is about right. It's him and Danny Elfman have a very interesting and unique way of composing music for things. And it's like the second that they hit, it's just like that.
Yep.
And you don't need like a bomb and like, well, that's Hans Zimmer.
Yeah.
So my pick for coming attraction, which there's like 15 movies coming out, whether on streaming and like even like Netflix is releasing Operation Mincemeat on Netflix today. No, that came out. It came out a couple days ago. Sneakerella on Disney Plus today, and I'm like, okay, fine. And then I saw it was an hour and 55 minutes. I'm like,
how?
I'm just like, no, you've dropped quickly on my list of things to watch. I'm just like, if I'm going to spend almost 2 hours, definitely not watching this. The one that I picked because I'm a huge fan of Bleecker Street, and I have a really great relationship with them. They always get me screeners for things, so shamelessly plugging here. I just feel like they have a level of quality. Like if you're getting a Bleecker Street film, this is at least really, really well made and has a lot of emotion in it. And that's Montana's story. And Haley Richardson and Owen Teague together in this film, and it looks absolutely gorgeous. And it's a story about two siblings trying to rekindle their fractured relationship on their father's deathbed because the unfortunate relationship that the father had with the sister, and which pushed her away from the family. And it's that kind of film. Like, this is definitely something like Bleecker Street would put out, and this is going to be like a really fine film. So that's something that I was looking forward to. So things are going to get bigger the next couple weeks because like I kind of like, well, I guess moving forward, all these Blumhouse films coming out from NBC Universal are just going to be like theaters, Peacock, because they can, and they need reasons for people to actually subscribe to Peacock. Because like, I guarantee you 99% of people have Peacock for one of three reasons: The Office, Parks and Rec, or you're a WWE fan.
Yep.
That's it.
It's true. Peacock has been kind of struggling to gain some traction lately with, there's not a lot of prominent shows on there. I mean, the last show that I really watched on Peacock was Bel Air. It was good, but I'm not going to recommend somebody drop everything that you're doing, subscribe to Peacock just for Bel Air.
That's a tricky thing. I like a few shows on Peacock, but I'm like, none of them are like, oh my God, you have to go subscribe to Peacock for it. Like, I enjoyed Girls 5 Eva because it was like a silly satire of like girl bands and stuff like that, like Spice Girls, and then Killing It with Craig Robinson.
Oh, okay.
Hunting down gators in Florida. Like those kinds of things I enjoy, but I'm not like, none of those are like, you gotta get Peacock.
Yeah, it's not like a Ted Lasso level thing for Apple TV Plus, or a couple other things that are on Netflix. Like I know a lot of friends who subscribe to Netflix strictly for Bridgerton. Like, okay, if that is what you choose, but there's lots of other things on Netflix.
Stranger Things season 4 is going to be coming up, so a lot of people, it's like you're going to see a bit of tick up with all their lost subscribers because they're like, oh no, I got to watch Stranger Things.
Right, and Ozark just ended, so that's definitely one that if you're looking for a quality show and you're looking to subscribe to Netflix, like go watch Ozark. Ozark's pretty good.
And then like 90% of what comes out on HBO Max.
Yes.
Because they're just like, this is our dojo now.
This is they're just on a hot streak right now, and Hacks just started back up, and I'm really excited about that.
I bet. There's so many shows out right now on HBO Max. It's I'm in the middle of the new episode of The Staircase. I really enjoy Made for Love. I haven't gotten a chance to watch the first two episodes of Hacks yet, which they're doing an interesting. Here's 2 episodes each week for 4 or 5 weeks with their comedies right now. And then like Thursday's just HBO Max day. And then Friday is Apple TV Plus day.
Yep.
So that's the world we live in. So there you go.
True.
And then Amazon has a couple things thrown in there. Like Star Trek, Strange New Worlds. Actually enjoying that quite a bit right now. And I'm not a huge Star Trek fan. So there you go. But we're here to talk about our feature film, which is Savage, which is a TV movie starring Martin Landau, aka the man who stole Samuel L. Jackson's Oscar, according to Samuel L. Jackson, and my friend Matt, because I can't even get Matt to watch Ed Wood.
Oh, that's too bad.
I know. I'm like, come on, Matt. It's a great movie. And he's just like, you mean the movie that beat out Pulp Fiction for Best Supporting Actor? I'm like, to be fair, Samuel L. Jackson should have been Best Actor anyway, but
yeah,
because it's like, that's a whole entire other conversation. And yeah, Samuel L. Jackson probably should have won the Oscar, but Martin Landau was a great actor. And this is focusing on Martin Landau, who plays Paul Savage, a TV reporter investigating compromising photographs of a nominee to the Supreme Court in an hour and 13 minutes. So now, Mike, what interested you in coming on for this episode?
So we've had over the last couple of years a lot of high profile, highly contentious, I guess, Supreme Court nomination, everything. So
yeah.
So when I read the description of this, I became intrigued, and I'm a fan of Martin Landau, so I wanted to check this out. This was one that, I don't know how this slipped through the radar, but this is one that I read the description of it, became interested, and wanted to see it.
Yeah, I feel like this, like out of all the Spielberg films, this was one of 4 of them that I don't think I heard of before going into my dive into Spielberg. And 2 of them were 2 of his TV movies. I definitely heard of Duel before, and it's so great. But what were some of the things that stood out to you, Mike, that you enjoyed about Savage?
So one thing right off the bat is, Martin Landau just is doing some work in this. He is he's charismatic, he's cool, he's doing the best he can with what he's given, and I greatly appreciated that. It's been a while since I've seen something with Martin Landau that was a little bit older, so it's like, oh, you're very suave and very, playing it cool. So that was the thing that immediately stood out. Plus, he's got, perhaps if he was a real life character, would be perhaps one of the greatest journalist names ever, in Paul Savage.
Paul Savage.
I'm Paul Savage. Like, yeah, I'm listening to that guy for my news. So that's the first thing that immediately stood out was Martin Landau doing some work with his performance.
I think, and this is an interesting context too, because I'm not super aware of what TV movies were like in the 70s, but I don't imagine them having a bunch of big name actors in them. Today, it's a completely different thing where you get TV shows with I'm thinking of something like basically anything that Apple puts out. Think of the morning show. How the hell did you get all those actors to be in that show? It's just that's the landscape right now. And calling something what is a TV movie anymore? Because like most of the time it's like they're Netflix films. Is it a TV movie? The Oscars say they are, unless you put it in a theater. But like that's the thing. It's like it's a different kind of environment. But like I'm trying to think. I've only seen him as a younger actor in North by Northwest, probably. Because then I've also only probably seen 3 movies with him in it. I'm trying to think. Because like I love Ed Wood. So like him as Bela Lugosi, and that's like a completely immersive, different kind of performance. And then if I'm not mistaken, he has a very small role in Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah.
At like the very beginning of the film. Which like, so I don't have a whole lot of experience with Martin Landau. I do have Crimes and Misdemeanors on my watch list. It's at the top of my watch list, but it's literally nowhere. So I can't watch it. But the thing is, it's like he does give a really charismatic performance, and yeah, he's definitely acting above a TV. So yes, there you go.
Absolutely.
What else stood out?
So just the inciting incident for the scandal, it stood out to me for a couple reasons. One, it's like, that's it. This is the inciting incident for a scandal, given what our current landscape is for scandal with politics. But just the mystery, just it's very intriguing, I guess is the best way to put it, because it's very layered, and it's not just as simple as hey, this Supreme Court nominee is in a compromising situation. There's a little bit more involved with that. So I was a little intrigued with how involved the mystery was and just what's behind it all. So I will give the film a little bit of credit for that as well.
It's so funny that you bring that up, because like now I'm just, as you were talking, I'm just sitting here thinking about just within like the past year, all of the things that have come out about politicians that have not sunk politicians' careers. And like, I feel like in the age of Donald Trump,
just
doesn't matter anymore.
Well, and it's interesting because, and I'm not going to get into party dynamics and things like that, but also just like how there are certain scandals that sink politicians, and then there's a lot of scandals that just don't anymore. And for this scandal, a photograph, just one photograph, not even in a compromising situation. It's just literally 2 individuals sitting next to each other. That is the photograph. So for that to possibly sink a Supreme Court nomination, I found that, I'm not going to lie, I found that a little laughable, but also just with everything else that went on in it, was like, oh, okay, I understand how that could possibly compromise a Supreme Court nomination in this context. So yeah.
And I appreciate you mentioning the context, because like I imagine in the 70s watching this on TV, you're just like,
oh no.
And you're like, in 2022, I'm like,
meh.
It's like, hold my beer. Just like
that's the best you can do.
I can even think of one picture that came out in the past 2 weeks about one particular representative, where it's just like, just hanging out with the boys. It's just like, okay.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, well, that's not going to do anything. And it's just like, at this point, that's politics today. And I think this film's a hard sell for a modern audience, because it's a TV movie from the 70s, and 2, politics have escalated so far that it's not even too believable anymore that like this would even be an issue, kind of thing. But sometimes like you have to take a step back and look at a film in the context of the time, because it's like, it's the same thing of like, how many movies would be ruined if you had cell phones? Like 90% of them.
Pretty good amount of them. Yeah.
So, but anything else?
I did like the dynamic between Paul Savage and his producer, I believe her name was Gail Abbott.
Mhm.
I thought that their relationship was good. Would it cross the line in today's culture? It would be borderline at best, but I thought that their relationship was really strong. They worked well together, and just the way that Paul treats his entire team, giving them a lot of leeway. I thought that was really cool because I can't imagine journalists nowadays with just between gotcha journalism and also the need to just get the story out first quickly because, you know, again, Twitter ruins a lot of like breaking news stories that people are working on now. So to see like a newsroom, you know, and their dynamic together, that was cool to watch. So I appreciated that.
And speaking of some of the cast, I want to do a special shout out here because Dabney Coleman's in this. And I almost did not recognize him because he was so young in this movie. I'm like, where's Dabney Coleman? And then this actor starts coming in and he's having this conversation. I'm like,
it's you.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
And because like, this is going to be funny. The reason I know Dabney Coleman originally is because I loved watching the Beverly Hillbillies movie from the early 90s. And he's Mr. Drysdale. And which, not gonna lie, not an absolutely terrible like modern retelling of the Beverly Hillbillies because Jim Varney is great.
So good.
He's so good. And Cloris Leachman is great. He's just like a whole other thing. But it's so interesting seeing like character actors popping up and stuff like this. And you know, and he up until 2019 was still popping up in like Yellowstone and stuff like that. So, and interesting seeing, because I feel like those are the kinds of actors that you see in these TV movies, are like famous character actors, because they're more likely to like not be like huge names and they could probably actually get hired onto a TV movie. Like when I watched Something Evil last week, it's like it was the dad from A Christmas Story, was the dad in that one. And it was also one of the two old guys from Trading Places was also in it. It was just like, wait a minute. So it's like those little fun things. One thing that stuck out to me from a technical standpoint is like, no matter any of these movies that I've been watching so far, you can tell Steven Spielberg is a really talented director. And one particular sequence at the beginning of the film where they're setting up like the opening of like them recording the newscast and stuff like that, there's some really inspired camera work going on at the beginning. I recall one specific sequence of shots of it pulling away from the TV into a room of a woman waiting there, and like she becomes to be in focus, the TV's out of focus, and then you see her like, you know, waiting and seeming bored and stuff like that, and you can tell like he's off doing his news thing and she's just like, what the hell's Mumbai doing? And then all of a sudden it kicks back and zooms back in and pulls back out as a teleprompter and you're back in the studio. I'm like, oh, ooh. And it's just like, you could see those little kinds of things. And that's probably the most Spielberg-y thing about this one, is that you can see like the impressive actual direction and how they're playing with the camera work and stuff like that.
There was another shot at the end where it's just mainly silhouettes of people, and just the camera work that he does there was also really good. Context aside for what was actually going on, I thought that shot was really cool. That there's these two people in silhouettes and they're just kind of gradually approaching. There was a couple shots like that in this movie that I thought were really strong. So yes, the direction and just you know, camera angles and things like that, that is probably as Spielberg as this movie gets.
Yeah. And I feel like in general, like as a whole, the movie wrapped up, I'm like, okay, this was a made for TV. Like, I guess you could call it a thriller. Kind of. So it's like that. And at the end, I'm like, there's some strong technical aspects. Martin Landau definitely did a great job with this movie. But in the end, I'm just like, yeah,
It was perfectly like I'm not gonna lie. I blocked off 2 hours to make sure that I watched this because I don't know. We live in an age where 2 hour movies are a thing, and when I pulled it up and I saw that it was an hour and 15 minutes, I was like, oh, well, okay. And I do feel like I I don't know. A part of me feels like there was like an extra 15-20 minutes that was missing to possibly provide more context, but maybe it wasn't. Maybe it just kind of wraps up kind of nicely and goes from there.
I think it's probably the expectation too. This is going to be a made for TV movie. Have a nice little thriller, have a big star in it. Yeah, and then bam, there you go. Throw it on the TV, throw in your ads. I'm trying to think, was this an hour and a half block? Or was this a 2 hour block? And they had like 45 minutes of ads during this movie.
I know, right?
And I'm just like, ugh.
Maybe this was a big advertising push because it's like, hey, we got Martin Landau for this. So maybe that was.
It probably like, here you got an hour and 15 minutes of content to put together because we got ads to show. Right. And I think that's the tricky thing too about network television, because like even like the TV shows are forced into like, this has to be 42 minutes because it got to be 42 minutes so we can fit our ads in. We need 20 minutes of ads. Actually, you know what, the math checks out then, honestly, because like an hour you get 42 minutes of actual show and like 20 minutes of so this probably was like a 2 hour block and they just had 45 minutes of ads. So that's I think that's one of the limiting factors. And like, I do appreciate certain, like today, there's certain networks like FX, they'll let it go as long as it needs to go and plan accordingly and stuff like that. But, you know, I just felt like this was a nicely put together, like this hits certain beats, it wraps up nicely, and then bam, you're good. Go back.
That's probably the biggest thing that I kind of knock this movie for, is that it does wrap up a little too nicely. I'm a little conflicted with some of the decisions that Savage makes at the end, but I don't know. It just seemed to wrap up a little too nicely. I found it laughable that a Supreme Court nomination would have to endure 4 hours of testimony. That's it, 4 hours. Now they do days of testimony, and he was all like
on TV, so we could watch the nonsense.
Right. So, yeah, just I found that funny. But
my interview for my job as the assistant director of a tutoring center was longer than 4 hours. Wait a minute.
For a Supreme Court nominee. And the only other thing that I could really knock is that there's again the inciting incident, but also the main, I guess you call him the main guy, that a little too mustache twirly for my taste. It's like, all I want is, influence, like we're not quite at like, I just want to watch the world burn type of thing, but I just want to control everything. That seemed a little too like, boy, you're this close to being a Bond villain, aren't you? So, but yeah, that was a little too much and a little too over the top.
And in a world where there is a Bond villain who literally manipulates the news to try to take over influence.
I know. Yeah.
It's like this movie was a little like 25 years too early. And then this guy could have been in Tomorrow Never Dies. And
there you go.
That could have just been an actual Bond movie.
Perfect.
So I think I'm hoping that this is one of the last movies that I wrap up and just be like, well, that was just like, it is what it is. It was just fine. Now I'm going to be watching from here on, all theatrical release films of Steven Spielberg, which I've seen most of them. So, to be frank, I have a handful of them I haven't seen, and probably the one coming up quickest is 1941. I haven't seen. Also, have not heard good things about it, but we'll find out.
It's fine. It's perfectly fine.
Maybe that's the one thing that Steven Spielberg shouldn't do, is a full-blown comedy.
Yeah, maybe. That's
Might not be his thing. Not everybody's that funny. But any last minute thoughts, Mike, or you feel like you kind of hit the points?
The only other thing that I'll say is that how Savage outsmarts, I alluded to that shot with the two people in silhouettes. That's one of your big climactic moments where Savage, saves the day, I guess. I found his solution to that ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous, because in an age where the news is they're trying out different things with the news, and for him to solve it like that, I rolled my eyes. I really did, but it worked, and good for him. And he saved the day. But hey, it was cool that he pulled it off. That's all I have to say.
And that is Savage. And now we got some recommendations for you. So, Mike, I know you had two of them. So what do you want to recommend to the lovely people watching the show?
So I have my first recommendation. It seems weird to recommend a show that's been on it will be coming up on 13 seasons, but Bob's Burgers. My sister has been pestering me to watch this show for years, literal years. And I'm not gonna lie, I don't always trust my sister's recommendations, but this is one where I told her, okay, I'm sorry. I get it. I understand why. And the movie's coming out soon, so I figured that this would be good context. So Bob's Burgers was recommendation number one. Recommendation number two, there's a new show on FX. It's called Under the Banner of Heaven. Dear Lord, slight pun intended. Dear Lord, it's fantastic. The mystery is intriguing. Andrew Garfield just continues to just show he's on a hot streak right now, and he's doing great work. And it tackles a lot of heavy issues. Just whether it's issues about faith or whether it's issues involving domestic disputes as well. There's a lot of intriguing stuff going on with it. It's only the fourth episode just got released recently, so it's really great. Check it out. And full disclosure, it's lots of trigger warnings on it for violence and crises of faith, but also just with that context as well. Just it's a true crime thriller. Somebody kind of pointed this out on Twitter that there is a real life victim here, so keeping that front and center as always is important, but it's still something that I think the show is really intriguing and fantastic so far. So Under the Banner of Heaven on FX, streaming on Hulu, definite recommend.
Yeah, I wanted to double check because it's 4 episodes in, it's 7 episodes. So you could try to catch up, or you could wait 3 weeks and just watch all of them. It's going to be on Hulu, so it's going to be an easy thing for you to seek out. There are 7 full-hour, hard-watch episodes because this is an intense show. And the cast is just, because Andrew Garfield's obviously the big selling point, but Gil Birmingham, love him from Hell or High Water and Yellowstone. And then some of the brothers of this family, it's some of the best work I've seen Sam Worthington do. Because
where's he been? Yeah.
filming all the stupid Avatar
Oh my God,
sequels.
that's true. That's so true.
Literally, he's been years filming Avatar sequels. And Wyatt Russell definitely gets a big chance to shine in this show. And he's doing a really good job and really selling that. So I definitely recommend that too. And I've been a Bob's Burgers fan since they debuted it. So I've been watching that show for 12 years. And so Mike, who's your favorite Belcher?
Such a loaded question because it changes episode to episode. But if I were to pick a favorite Belcher, I gotta go with Tina. I love Tina. She's so wonderfully awkward, and I just love her and her storylines to death. So yes, there is lot of storylines, a lot of different things going on, but overall, the sheer amount of the ones with Tina in it are some of my favorites. So I'm gonna go with Tina, but I am subject to changing with more episodes that come out. So
Tina, I think Tina is probably the biggest breakout star of the show because like you walk into like a hot topic, you're gonna see Tina Belcher shirts and talking about butts.
Yes.
And talking about butts.
Absolutely.
One of my favorite quotes from the show is when they're all trying to sleep in the same bed one night and Louise comes in and is like, Louise, welcome to the bed. This is where I thrash. Like, oh my God. Because the kids are so weird. All of them. Louise is like a little sociopath. And then Jean is just Jean's Halloween costumes alone. Him as Queen Latifah in that one Halloween episode. Oh, I just love the show. I'm definitely a big fan of Bob.
So the Halloween costumes are all great because I just watched the episode recently where Jean was Andre 3000 the Giant. It's like bravo, and Tina was None of Your Business, and she was just dressed up as a nun. I was like, wow, this show understands the assignment. And Bob is just the unsung hero. Like, I get it, he's, it's his namesake in the show. I get that, but for his family to take the spotlight a lot of times, and the guy who's voicing him is just doing some great work. He's always done great work between this and Archer, but
love H. John Benjamin.
so good. So good.
Bob gets his moments and his weird relationships with his burgers when he talks to them. and he has he has his weird moments too, because Bob's weird too. But like he's definitely the straight man to just the mayhem that is not only his family, but like every other character.
Everybody around this weird community as well.
Welcome to New Jersey.
I guess.
Apparently, because this is a Jersey Shore town, apparently. I remember when I found out this was supposed to be New Jersey, I'm like, oh my God. For those who don't know, I'm from New Jersey. I'm just like, oh man, this makes way too much sense now. Because like the Jimmy Pesto's thing, 100% that kind of restaurant would be at a Jersey Shore town. Sure. And I love Mr. Fish Odor. Kevin Kline is just a delight.
Kevin Kline is just so good in that role. It's hilarious. And the amount of guest stars and recurring people that they have for it is great. Mm-hmm. It's just so funny.
Yeah, and I'm a huge fan. I can't wait for the movie to come out in a couple weeks, so I'm really looking forward to that. I'm sticking to just one recommendation this week because honestly, I haven't really watched. I can't even remember what of my movies I watched this past week at this point. But HBO filmed The Survivor. It's not an easy watch because it's about the Holocaust. But like Ben Foster plays this Holocaust survivor who was forced by one of the most unexpected Nazis, and Billy Magnuson was not expecting that at all. Like, he's a Nazi, and he's the one who makes him box other concentration camp prisoners. And so that's how he learned the box, is he had to fight for the Nazis' enjoyment. And then it's him getting to America and trying to be a boxer, making a living out of that. And Ben Foster is one of the most unsung actors in Hollywood and always gives great performances. And this has like crazy supporting cast too, because like you have like Danny DeVito in a small role, and I want to pull it up because there's a few other pretty big name people. Like I already mentioned, like Ben Foster and Billy Magnuson, Vicky Krieps, who was the breakout star of Phantom Thread, plays his wife. Peter Sarsgaard's in it. Danny DeVito. John Leguizamo is one of his coaches, trying to help him box and stuff like that. So like, there's a lot of good character actor work, and he's trying to build up to a fight with Rocky Marciano, and I'm like, Rocky. So it's one of those kinds of things where it's just like, this is based off a true story, and it's intense, it's really well made, it's emotional, and it's something you would expect from HBO. So their quality's there, so you would expect it. But that's definitely one of the best new things that I've watched in the past week, so I definitely would recommend it. And it's on HBO Max, so it's streaming. But that's a wrap this week on Welcome to the Wasteland. Mike, thank you so much for coming on this week.
Thanks, Shane. Appreciate you coming on, and appreciate your flexibility. I've had some, health issues at home with COVID, so appreciate the flexibility. I
have been in close contact with 3 different people in the past 2 weeks, so it's still making the rounds with things. And I'm like, I'm getting married in a couple weeks, and now I'm just like, I want to just be in a bubble. Until then, it's just like, get away, people.
Don't touch me. Don't look at me. None of that. If you get me sick, you're uninvited. But
it's just like, if I get sick, it's not happening. Mm-hmm. So it's that kind of time. And, people get busy and stuff like that. We do our best. This isn't our full-time jobs, right? So we do our best. We love talking about movies and TV and stuff like that. So we get to have some fun with it. But Mike will be coming on soon too, so keep an eye out for that. But thank you, Mike, again, and thank all of you out there for always tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.